AI's Odyssey is based on Homer's Odyssey premise. A king encounters many perils on his journey home after a war. Once upon a time, in the ancient kingdom of Eldoria, there was a wise and noble king named Alaric. Alaric was a beloved ruler known for his courage, wisdom, and fair judgment. Under his rule, Eldoria flourished, with its fields yielding bountiful harvests and its cities buzzing with the prosperity of trade and innovation. The people lived in peace and harmony, and the kingdom was a beacon of hope and justice. However, dark clouds loomed on the horizon. The neighboring empire of Dracoria, envious of Eldoria's prosperity and coveting its rich resources, declared war. Dracoria was a formidable foe, known for its ruthless warriors and cunning strategies. The declaration of war sent shockwaves through Eldoria, casting a shadow over the once serene land. King Alaric, a man of action and unyielding spirit, did not hesitate. He summoned his bravest soldiers, forging a formidable army from farmers, artisans, and seasoned warriors alike. With a heavy heart but a determined soul, he bid farewell to his family and the people he loved, vowing to protect them at all costs. The kingdom watched with bated breath as their beloved king and his army marched toward the battlefield. The war was long and grueling, with many fierce battles fought on blood-soaked fields. Alaric proved to be a brilliant strategist and a fearless leader, always at the forefront of the fight, inspiring his men with his unwavering resolve. The soldiers of Eldoria, driven by their loyalty to their king and their love for their homeland, fought with unmatched valor. Years passed, each day bringing new challenges and sacrifices. The tides of war ebbed and flowed, but Alaric's leadership and the courage of his men never wavered. Finally, after a climactic battle on the plains of Ravengard, Alaric and his army emerged victorious. The forces of Dracoria were defeated, and peace was restored to Eldoria. However, the victory came at a great cost, and the journey back home proved to be an odyssey fraught with perils that tested King Alaric's resolve and leadership. The path to Eldoria was no longer familiar or safe. It was filled with unforeseen challenges and dangers, each step a reminder that the true test of a leader is not only in winning battles but also in guiding his people through the darkest of times. The first peril they faced was the Cursed Forest, a place rumored to be inhabited by malevolent spirits. As they entered the forest, a dense fog enveloped them, and whispers of lost souls filled the air. The soldiers grew anxious, their nerves fraying with each step into the eerie gloom. The whispers grew louder, echoing through the trees. "Turn back. Doomed. Leave this place." The spirits' voices were filled with sorrow and despair, their words tangled in the mist. King Alaric, sensing the growing fear among his men, called for calm. "Stay close," he commanded. "We must face this challenge together." One of Alaric's men, Baldric, stepped forward. Baldric was a tall, lean man with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. His intelligence and quick thinking had earned him a place among Alaric's trusted advisors. He was known for his cunning and ability to see through the most intricate of puzzles. "These whispers," Baldric mused, "they are not just meant to frighten us. There is a message here, hidden in their sorrow." The soldiers looked at him with a mixture of hope and skepticism. Baldric closed his eyes, focusing on the whispers. "Turn back. Doomed. Leave this place. Lost. Release us," he repeated, parsing through the cacophony of voices. Suddenly, his eyes snapped open. "They are bound here, trapped by a curse. They seek release, not to harm us but to find peace." Baldric moved through the dense fog, his steps guided by the whispers. He reached a clearing where a large, ancient tree stood. The tree's bark was twisted and gnarled, and its branches seemed to reach out like skeletal arms. "This tree," Baldric said, placing his hand on the rough bark, "is the source of the curse. We must break it to free the spirits." With King Alaric's consent, the men worked together to cut through the tree's thick trunk. As the tree fell, a haunting wail echoed through the forest, and the dense fog began to lift. The whispers turned to sighs of relief, and the oppressive atmosphere lightened. "Thank you," the spirits whispered one last time before fading into silence. The men of Eldoria watched in awe as the forest transformed. The once cursed land began to show signs of life, with sunlight filtering through the trees and the sound of birds returning to the canopy. Baldric turned to King Alaric, a proud smile on his face. "We have broken the curse that plagued this forest for centuries. The spirits are free, and so are we." King Alaric clasped Baldric's shoulder. "Your wisdom and courage have saved us, Baldric. We owe you our thanks." With renewed spirits, the men of Eldoria continued their journey, knowing that together, they could overcome any obstacle. The cursed forest was now behind them, a testament to their resilience and unity. The path ahead was still long and uncertain, but they marched forward with hope, their hearts set on returning home. Beyond the forest lay the treacherous mountains, known for their treacherous terrain and unpredictable weather. The rocky slopes rose before them, challenging even the most seasoned climbers among the soldiers. As they began their ascent, the sky darkened, and a violent storm broke out, lightning flashing and thunder roaring overhead. The sudden downpour turned the rocky paths into slippery hazards, and the fierce winds whipped at their cloaks. Soon, landslides began, sending torrents of rocks and debris crashing down, blocking their path. The men struggled to maintain their footing, and a sense of dread started to seep into their ranks. Amid the chaos, King Alaric remained resolute. His physical prowess and endurance, honed through years of battle, became evident as he led his men in clearing the debris. He heaved boulders aside with sheer strength and guided his soldiers through the safer passages he identified. "We must keep moving," Alaric shouted over the roar of the storm. "Stay together and follow my lead." His determination and unwavering spirit inspired the soldiers, giving them the courage to press on despite the harsh conditions. As they continued to climb, they encountered a figure descending the mountain towards them, moving with a grace that defied the raging storm. The newcomer was a woman with dark hair tied back, her eyes sharp and her movements agile. She wore practical, weather-worn clothing, and carried a sturdy staff. Her presence was commanding, and she approached King Alaric with a confident stride. "Who are you?" Alaric asked, his voice carrying authority but also curiosity. "I am Erwen," she replied, her voice steady. "A guide and a healer in these mountains. I know these paths well, and I can help you find a safer route." Alaric studied her for a moment, then nodded. "We welcome your guidance, Erwen. We must reach the other side without losing more men to this treacherous terrain." Erwen quickly took the lead, navigating the mountain with an expertise that left the soldiers in awe. She pointed out hidden paths and safer trails, her knowledge of the mountains proving invaluable. As they moved, Erwen also tended to those who were injured or exhausted, her healing skills bringing much-needed relief. At one point, as they rested in a small, sheltered cave, Baldric approached Erwen. "Your timing was impeccable," he said, his keen eyes appraising her. "We owe you our thanks." Erwen smiled, a hint of mystery in her expression. "I heard the spirits in the forest whisper of your arrival. They spoke of a great king and his wise advisor breaking their curse. It seems the mountains themselves wanted to test your resolve next." Baldric nodded thoughtfully. "These lands are full of challenges, but with allies like you, we stand a better chance of overcoming them." With Erwen's guidance and Alaric's leadership, the soldiers continued their climb. The storm eventually subsided, and they reached the peak of the treacherous mountains. From there, they could see their path stretching out before them, the road to Eldoria now within sight. King Alaric stood at the summit, looking back at his men. "We have faced the spirits of the forest and thanks to Ern, the fury of the mountains. Together, we will overcome any obstacle that lies ahead. Onward to Eldoria." With renewed vigor and the knowledge that they could rely on each other and newfound allies, the men of Eldoria began their descent, their spirits unbroken and their hearts set on home. As the men of Eldoria prepared to leave the treacherous mountains behind, Baldric approached Erwen, who was gathering her belongings at the edge of their camp. He admired her skills and resilience, knowing that someone of her talents could be a valuable ally on their journey. "Erwen," Baldric began, his voice respectful, "you have guided us through these mountains with skill and grace. Your knowledge and healing have saved many of our men. We would be honored if you joined us on our journey back to Eldoria." Erwen looked at Baldric, her expression thoughtful. "Your king is a man of great courage and your men are valiant. I see the bond you share. I will accompany you, for there are many more challenges ahead, and you will need all the help you can get." Baldric smiled, grateful for her decision. "We are fortunate to have you with us." With Erwen now part of their company, the soldiers descended the mountain, their spirits bolstered by her presence. They soon arrived at the banks of the enchanted river, a mystical waterway that held both beauty and danger. The river's waters shimmered with a magical glow, casting an ethereal light on the surrounding landscape. But beneath its enchanting surface lurked powerful currents that could sweep away anyone who dared to cross. Baldric, ever the strategist, observed the river's flow and the treacherous currents. "We need sturdy rafts to cross this river safely," he declared. "Gather wood and vines. We will build rafts that can withstand the currents." The soldiers set to work under Baldric's direction, constructing rafts from the materials they gathered. As they worked, the magical glow of the river seemed to pulse, hinting at the unseen dangers beneath its surface. With the rafts completed, the men carefully embarked, their nerves taut as they pushed off from the shore. The river's currents were strong, and the rafts creaked under the strain. Suddenly, a soldier lost his footing, slipping into the water. The current seized him instantly, dragging him under. Panic erupted as more soldiers were swept away, their cries for help echoing above the roar of the river. Blood stained the water, and chaos threatened to engulf the group. Alaric, seeing the fear and disarray, raised his voice above the tumult. "Stay together. Hold on to the rafts and each other. We will get through this." His command cut through the panic, and the soldiers rallied, following his lead. Alaric's presence, his unwavering determination, brought them back from the brink of despair. With great effort, they managed to stabilize the remaining rafts, though the loss of their comrades weighed heavily on their hearts. As they navigated the treacherous waters, ethereal figures began to emerge from the shimmering depths. Water nymphs, their forms delicate and alluring, swam gracefully around the rafts, singing haunting melodies that tugged at the soldiers' minds, tempting them to join them in the river. Alaric, recognizing the danger, addressed the nymphs with a voice filled with kindness and respect. "Fair nymphs of the river, we seek only to cross to the other side. We mean you no harm and wish to pass safely. Can you help us?" The nymphs paused in their song, intrigued by Alaric's sincerity and charisma. One nymph, with eyes as deep as the ocean, swam closer. "Your heart is pure, and your intentions are noble, King Alaric. We will guide you safely across." With the nymphs leading the way, the rafts navigated the river with ease, avoiding hidden dangers and treacherous currents. The soldiers marveled at the nymphs' beauty and grace, their fear replaced by a sense of wonder and gratitude. Finally, they reached the opposite bank, the enchanted river now behind them. The nymphs bid them farewell, disappearing back into the shimmering depths. Alaric turned to his men, his voice strong and filled with hope. "Today we lost many of our dear comrades, but we must honor their souls and continue forth. We must stay strong and ensure that their legacy will live on through generations. We will return to Eldoria." The soldiers, their spirits lifted by Alaric's leadership and the guidance of the nymphs, prepared to march onward, their hearts set on returning home. Their journey then took them to the Desert of Illusions, a vast expanse of shifting sands where mirages and hallucinations disoriented even the most steadfast travelers. The intense heat bore down on them, and the lack of water tested their endurance to the limit. As they trudged through the desert, many soldiers succumbed to the illusions, their minds playing tricks on them. In the distance, Baldric moved erratically, swaying and talking to unseen figures. At first, no one paid much attention, attributing his behavior to the strain of the journey. Erwen, ever vigilant, searched the desert for ingredients to create a potion that would protect the group from the illusions. Meanwhile, Alaric pressed on, his mind beginning to play tricks on him as well. Suddenly, he saw familiar faces in the distance. His family appeared before him, their expressions filled with warmth and love. His heart ached with longing as they called out to him, urging him to rest. "Alaric, come and rest. You've done enough," his wife said, her voice soothing and gentle. "Father, lie down and sleep," his children chorused, their voices blending into a melodious lullaby. The more they urged, the more their voices became a haunting song, pulling Alaric into a state of deep fatigue. He felt his eyes growing heavy, his body sinking into the sand as he gave into the illusion of peace and rest. Just as he was about to succumb to this eternal sleep, Erwen appeared, a vial in her hand. She quickly administered the potion to Alaric, the bitter liquid jolting him back to reality. The vision of his family faded, replaced by the harsh, unyielding landscape of the desert. "Alaric, stay with us," Erwen urged, her voice a lifeline pulling him from the brink. Alaric shook his head, clearing the last remnants of the illusion. He stood up, brushing the sand off his garments. "Thank you, Erwen. You saved me." Together, they began distributing the potion among the group. Alaric moved from soldier to soldier, offering words of encouragement as Erwen administered the antidote. Each man who drank the potion snapped back to reality, the mirages dissipating from their minds. When they reached Baldric, Erwen carefully gave him the potion. Baldric blinked as the potion took effect, his erratic movements ceasing. However, when he looked up, his gaze was different, fixed, soulless, as if a part of him was lost in the illusions he had faced. "Baldric, can you hear me?" Alaric asked, concern etched on his face. Baldric nodded slowly, but his eyes remained distant, unfocused. I saw things, Alaric. Things I can't unsee." Erwen placed a comforting hand on Baldric's shoulder. "The desert preys on our deepest fears and desires. It will take time to fully recover, but you are strong, Baldric. We will help you through this." With the potion now distributed and the soldiers regaining their senses, the group continued their journey. The Desert of Illusions had tested them all, but with Alaric's leadership and Erwin's knowledge, they had managed to pull through. However, the encounter had left its mark, a reminder of the unseen dangers they still faced on their path back to Eldoria. As they pressed on, Alaric remained vigilant, his resolve stronger than ever. He knew that the journey was far from over, but with loyal allies like Erwin and Baldric by his side, he was confident that they would overcome any obstacle that lay ahead. As they neared Eldoria, the group encountered the most unexpected peril: betrayal from within. In the dead of night, a shadowy figure crept into Alaric's tent, a dagger gleaming in the moonlight. Just as the masked figure attempted to end Alaric, the king's instincts awakened him. Rolling out of harm's way, the assassin's sword lodged into the ground where Alaric had been lying. The would-be killer had to abandon the weapon and flee into the darkness. The camp was quickly roused, but the traitor had vanished into the night. Alaric's men were on edge, knowing that danger could now come from anywhere, even from within their ranks. The next day, they finally reached the outskirts of Eldoria, the site of their homeland filling them with renewed hope. But as they approached, the group was ambushed by a mirage of arrows, seemingly appearing out of thin air. Many men fell to the ground, crying out in pain. Erwin quickly shielded herself with a magical veil, and Alaric, with his figuratively iron skin, tanked the arrows, pushing forward to protect his men. Suddenly, a man stepped forward, confronting the group. It was Baldric, and behind him stood the remnants of Dracoria's army, seeking revenge. Baldric's eyes gleamed with a dark light, his once sharp mind now twisted by the promise of power and wealth. "You think it's fun being under a shadow?" Baldric sneered, his voice echoing with a newfound power. A radiant aura emitted from his body, and he began to float, his form glowing with a sinister energy. "Baldric, what have you done?" Alaric demanded, his voice filled with both sorrow and anger. "I was promised greatness by the Dracorians," Baldric replied. "No longer will I be just an advisor. I will be a king." As Baldric's aura grew more intense, Erwin ran up to Alaric, handing him a small, intricately carved amulet. "This is a powerful artifact," she explained. "It will give you the strength to defeat him." Alaric grasped the amulet, feeling its power course through him. With renewed determination, he faced Baldric, ready for the battle that would decide the fate of Eldoria. The clash was intense, with Baldric unleashing powerful spells and attacks fueled by his dark energy. Alaric, fortified by the magic item, countered each assault with unwavering strength and skill. The two fought fiercely, their battle raging across the battlefield. Erwin used her magic to protect the soldiers, keeping them safe from the remnants of Dracoria's forces. The soldiers, inspired by Alaric's bravery, fought with renewed vigor, holding the line against the enemy. After a long and grueling fight, Alaric finally gained the upper hand. With a decisive blow, he shattered the dark aura surrounding Baldric, breaking the spell that had consumed his former advisor. Baldric fell to the ground, defeated and powerless. Alaric stood over him, breathing heavily. "You were my friend, Baldric. This didn't have to end this way." Baldric, his strength fading, looked up at Alaric with a mixture of regret and bitterness. "I wanted more. I wanted to be someone." "You were someone," Alaric replied softly. "You were one of us." As the remnants of Dracoria's forces fled, defeated and demoralized, the soldiers of Eldoria rallied around their king. Erwin approached Alaric, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You have done it, Alaric. Eldoria is safe." With the threat vanquished and the betrayal exposed, Alaric led his weary but victorious men back into Eldoria. The people of the kingdom, hearing of their king's return and the bravery of his soldiers, greeted them with cheers and tears of joy. Eldoria had faced many perils, both external and internal, but under King Alaric's leadership and with the help of loyal allies like Erwin, they had emerged stronger than ever. The kingdom would rebuild, and the lessons learned from their trials would guide them into a brighter future. As Alaric looked over his kingdom, he knew that the journey had changed him and his people. They had faced darkness and emerged into the light, ready to forge a new chapter in Eldoria's history. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to leave a like, maybe even subscribe, and comment down below what premise you would like to see AI interpret into a new story. Thank you for watching.